All right. Well, welcome to the Menlo Park Environmental Quality Commission special meeting of April 27th, 2023. Today we're off schedule. We're having a special meeting, and in these special meetings, we can take public comment in front of each agenda item on the agenda item, but we don't have a space in the special meeting for general comments from the public for items not on the agenda. So that's just the one difference when we're operating in a special meeting. So Sustainability Manager, Lucky, can you call roll?
Yes, Commissioner Elkins here. Commissioner Evans is on her way. Chair Cabot,
Here.
Vice Chair Headley here. Commissioner Lynn is not here. Commissioner McKenna
Here.
and Commissioner Schmidt is also running late and it's not here yet. You may continue with the
Alright.
meeting, Chair Cabot.
All right, thank you. And so in regular business, we have two commissioners. What our item C1 is to recognize outgoing commissioners. We have two commissioners who are finishing their terms. And two new commissioners coming on, just appointed by the city council. They'll be coming on next month. So we can recognize our work of having been commissioners for a couple of years now.
How do we raise our hand in the non-Zoom world?
You can go like this.
Okay.
Oh,
I have a few things I'd like to say.
Yes.
Okay, so, Bill. A little card, owl, for Leah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Elkins, thank you for all of your work on the Zelly ordinance that we get to talk about tonight. So that feels like a capstone to your time here, and also for all your work on trees and Arbor Day and the urban forest. It's been a joy for me to get to know you over the last year.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Should I open this now?
You can if you want. Okay. And Chair Cabot.
The commission.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
As the others arrive, we'll get them to sign for your posterity. You can also plant the cards because they're wildflowers.
Seed cards. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can make something grow out of all our time together here on this.
indeed. And I wanted to thank you for being chair and all your work on electrification and the CAP plan and everything I've just learned from you personally as vice chair. So thank you.
Definitely, all of it's, my pleasure. It's been really nice to be able to serve the community and, take these couple of terms to try to help them along and help them meet their sustainability goals, help them define them and pursue them. So as I dug more into it, I keep seeing, there's more to do. There's faster we have to go. And so I get a bit anxious at times. And so thanks everyone for bearing with me and dealing with this angst of this climate emergency and trying to make our progress.
Yeah, I just want to thank you both. I think we only had 3 meetings together, but I really enjoy getting to know you, Leah, and Tom, got to know you very well, and really appreciate the work that you've both done for the city. And I know you'll probably both move on to doing more things in different ways, and we appreciate that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
it's
you.
been a real pleasure and a really interesting experience, and I'm glad to have done it.
Yes, thank you. And I totally appreciate the both of you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, Leah, some more. We met before you joined the commission.
That's right.
And, you just always have a great insight into things and approach things very practically.
Thank you.
And so I appreciate that so much. And so glad that you volunteered and you took some more action on some of the things you were working on and, even expanded on kind of
Right.
areas that maybe you weren't so familiar with. So I think that's very powerful and gonna miss you.
Oh, thank you. Well, maybe I'll reapply in a couple of years after I
Yeah, hope to
have a
see you
rest.
around.
and I
Hi.
find something else that I need. I just cannot let go.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. And then Tom, I hope we see you around.
Oh, yeah.
I've always loved learning from you. I feel like I learn something new every time. And you really just encourage this community to learn more and be more innovative and more clever about how we're trying to electrify our buildings. And
moving people along. I know you're a part of so many groups as well, and an inspiration really, in that you just never give up. And that's the kind of strength that's really needed to make changes. So appreciate you. And I know you'll keep doing that.
Yep, thanks so much. And you're right. I am gonna definitely keep doing it, but you know, I finished now 2 terms, and so I figured I could take a sabbatical. It's saw there were a lot of good candidates, you know, council made good choices. So that's really neat. And so I'll take that sabbatical, and I may apply again someday. So keep working on things.
Thank you. And I don't know if there's any members of the public that would like to comment if you, and there's a few folks online, but if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, we're appreciating our outgoing commissioners. You can raise your hand using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or if you're on a landline, you can press *9 and I can unmute you.
Yeah. Hi, welcome.
Okay, we've got 1 hand raised. Let me see.
I can't see the online meeting.
It's okay, I can. I'll let you. Let me. Look. So Eduardo Pellegrini. Yeah, parts. Maybe if you can tell us your name and how to pronounce it, that'd be wonderful.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's Eduardo. The rest doesn't matter, and you can roll the R or not. But it's Pellegrini Llopart. It's 2 last names. It's Spanish ancestry. Anyway, I'll tell you more later. So I'm here because of Tom. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I've learned a lot from him in many different forums, and he introduced me to EQC, and I applied, and I'm going to be joining you with Brian soon. But I mostly met him through Nextdoor, and I learned a lot about electrification over the last, I don't know, 4 years or so. So thanks, Tom. Thanks very much for everything you have done.
Anyway, thanks for applying to get onto the commission and help move the city along.
Okay, next we have Brian Kissel.
Hi, I'm just following up on Eduardo's comment. I'm excited to be on the commission, and I was also introduced to the commission by Tom, who actually helped with our heat pump hot water heater project at our own house, and Angela, and I think I talked to Nancy as well, learning more about what the commission does and its evolving mission. So I'm really excited and looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and helping any way I can.
All right. It's great to have this community pulling together, seeing what it can do together to make progress and set an example for others.
Thank you. And then the final speaker is Bernard Klaus. Let me mute you here.
Oh, hi, I just want to thank everybody on the commission and the outgoing commissioners for all the research that you've done on these topics that you cover. I've really learned a lot about issues that concern me, and, you know, added more motivations to follow up on some of these things. So it's really been, you know, nice to see this, and helps people like me at least get more involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Right.
welcome Commissioner Evans and Commissioner Schmidt. Oh, we understand there's been a lot of traffic. Everyone's run into it in one city or another.
5 minutes, 35, but my intention's working.
So I just want to say we're on the agenda item. We're recognizing our outgoing commissioners, Commissioner Elkins and Commissioner Cabot. So we're about to close the item.
Oh, okay.
If you would
So
like
this
to-
is my opportunity to say thank you and how much I enjoyed working with both of you. You both are such terrific humans, not to mention EQC commissioners. And I've had the pleasure of working with you on electrification with buildings, and look forward to continuing that work. And it's been terrific, and your technical expertise and social emotional skills are invaluable. And Leah, I appreciate many contributions, and on workshops. So thanks both of you for serving. Really appreciate it.
Same here, by the way. Outreach, trees, it's fantastic. I've enjoyed it a lot. We'll keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's my plan too. So keep going, keep working on it and see what we can all do together to keep moving forward. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone. And that concludes our item C1, brings us to item C2, approving the February 15th, 2023 meeting minutes. So there's an attachment for that. I go to that attachment, I lose the agenda.
Okay, Ori's putting that on a screen for us. Thank you, Ori.
All right, are there any questions or comments or additions to the minutes for the February 15th meeting? Seeing none, and is there any public comment on the approving the minutes of the February 15th meeting?
Thank you, Chair Cabot. So at this time, if there are any members of the public who would like to make or address the commission for up to 3 minutes on this agenda item of approving the minutes, you may raise your hand. It's at the bottom of your Zoom screen or next to your name, and I'll be able to unmute you. Okay, I do not see any hands raised, Chair Cabot, for this agenda item to approve the minutes from February.
February
Yes.
15th. All right, well, thank you. And so now any suggested changes or a motion to approve?
I move to approve minutes.
And
Second.
second by Commissioner LaRocque.
Okay, so since we're not on Zoom anymore, you can just raise your hands. So all those in favor of approving the minutes?
All right,
Great, it passes. All of the commissioners present for Ori's note taking.
Except for Commissioner.
Yes, except for,
Commissioner Lynn.
But I guess everyone.
yes, everyone present.
Oh,
Hi, just really quickly, who seconded?
Schmidt, Commissioner Schmidt.
Thank
one
you.
of-
One of us.
Great. If we can just say the
That's great.
seconding out loud for the recording, and us minute takers, that would be great. Thank you.
Did you want us to say, sorry, Ori, we missed that.
Oh, just for this, I got this one, but if we can say
Okay.
the motion in second for the
Right.
future items, yes, thank you.
okay, and that brings us to item C3, to provide a recommendation to City Council regarding proposed rules for gas-powered gardening equipment, zero emission landscaping equipment ordinance. And I believe there is a staff report.
There is a staff presentation, Chair Cabot, and try to move. if I can. Let's see what's going on here. There's a way to minimize it.
So for this item, we'll have a staff report and then clarifying questions from the commission, then public comment, and then commission discussion.
Thank you, Chair Cabot. So I'm Rebecca Lucky, the Sustainability Manager for those who are attending remotely. Most of the commissioners already know me. And going to give a presentation on our proposed gardening equipment rules and a local incentive. So just some topics the presentation is going to cover is why are we considering the rules, proposed rules and current incentives, gas and electric performance comparison, and a case study. Outreach methods that we use to reach out to gardeners in the community and results and next steps if the rules are adopted. So some considerations for developing the proposed rules. There's been several years of resident concern regarding noise, pollution, community and worker health from leaf blowers. And in 2021, in September, Commissioner Elkins presented a very detailed memo to the commission that where the commission ultimately recommended to the city council to look at considering a prohibition on gas-powered leaf blowers. The city council did review this matter in October of last year, and they directed staff to draft rules for all gas gardening equipment. So just because there are other impacts with all gardening equipment, and because of our climate action plan as well, to have a bigger impact on reducing emissions. They also asked for staff to do more one-on-one outreach with gardeners, more direct and personal outreach to find out how the transition would work for them and whether the proposed rules were going to be a hardship or how could we potentially support gardeners through the transition. And a lot of this is really building upon a California law that was adopted recently to prohibit the sale, not the use of gas-powered gardening equipment. So that means starting January 1st of next year, stores will not be able to put on their shelves gas-powered gardening equipment at all. And to try to kickstart off this new transition, the state has allocated $24 million in incentives to gardeners, professional gardeners, so not residents or non-gardening businesses. And that started in November of 2022. The money is flying off the shelves as well. There's only 13 million left as when I checked today. So it's definitely being used. And I'll talk a little bit about kind of what has happened among our outreach and trying to direct gardeners to these incentives. And so many of you know this already, but just again, for members of the public, the impacts of small off-road engines, of which 70% is gardening equipment, is quite significant. And the state has calculated that these types of emissions will surpass all the cars in California in the next few years. And so that's really the motivation for the prohibition of selling at the point of sale of gas gardening equipment and other small off-road engines like generators and those types of equipment. And then the health impact. So the state wrote quite a bit about the health impact on workers who are using this equipment and the dangers of using that equipment. They've researched that 1 hour of leaf blower use really equates to a 15-hour drive. And if you're not wearing protection, you know, you're really impacting your health. And typically it's a disadvantaged group that we're talking about, mainly Latinos, who are a lot of our gardeners in the community. So the proposed rules we're still proposing the same rules that we proposed back in October, which is to prohibit the use of leaf blowers and string trimmers starting July 1st of next year. And then a few other pieces of equipment, lawnmowers, hedge trimmers, and chainsaws starting January 1st, 2029. And this really allows a transition, gives people time. It gives us time to educate gardeners in the community on kind of what does that look like? How can you kind of reduce the use of powered equipment so that maybe you don't have to heavily rely on all of these batteries to try to make it through your workday. And the other pieces of equipment is just really kind of pushing it further faster than the equipment will wear out over time. So it's really anticipated, because of the state law going into effect next year, that most people will be in compliance by January 1st, 2029, as equipment reaches the end of its life. So the hours of operation for electric gardening equipment would remain the same. So the city already has its noise ordinance. It does allow like a little bit longer for electric equipment because it's quieter. I think it extends it from like 8 to 6, and then residents can use it during most of those hours on the weekends. I could dig in further if anyone has any questions, but there's a little bit of flexibility with electric equipment versus gas powered equipment. And the violations would be tied to the property owner. So it would not, we would not be enforcing any kind of fines or penalties to the gardener. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is it's really difficult for a city to respond to non-emergency complaints. And by the time that they do, the gardener is gone, or sometimes the gardener is not the, decision maker of the business either, so can't really do anything. And so hopefully by, tying it to the property owner, that there's an opportunity for education and conversation between the resident or business and their gardeners. So the state discount program that's been available since November of last year is for gardening professionals only. And I've got a couple of website resources if you're curious, or if anybody in attendance remotely is curious about what incentives are available. There is a lot of equipment, just even beyond leaf blowers. It includes lawnmowers, chainsaws, and other items. But the point of this slide is really to show how significant the discounts are and why the money is going so quickly. So for example, this Eggo backpack is normally about $700. With the discounted price, it's $300. And in order for landscapers and gardeners to get the discounted equipment, they do have to go to specialized dealers or stores. You can't just go to the Home Depot or Amazon. You will not get the discount. They have to go to like Ewing in San Carlos, Gardenland, and Campbell, and they're authorized dealers. And the reason why the state did that is to make it easier for gardeners to apply for the discount. So they don't have to do any work. They basically show up with their business card, or they may have been a customer in the past, and the store representative takes care of all the paperwork for them, and they can order the equipment. And I've talked to a few of the dealers as well, and they usually will not even ask for upfront payment right away. They'll kind of hold the equipment, because sometimes it takes, with the supplying issues that we're all experiencing, it takes a bit of time for the equipment to arrive. So they kind of allow a bit of flexibility on that front as well. And then this cabinet on the bottom of the screen there is actually like a charging cabinet. And so again, you can see it's pretty pricey. It's $6,000, but right now you can get it for $1,800 at these particular stores. So we've been talking about electric versus gas for quite a while with gardening equipment, and we had the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and just talk to people about kind of what do you think of the performance of electric gardening equipment. So for private use, generally people are satisfied with the performance of electric equipment. They're able to kind of get all the work done, and it's very similar to the gas equipment that they use, and they like it better because it doesn't make noise and it's not as odorous and smelly and hazardous. And professional gardeners do have some further considerations to make in investments and time considerations. So because this is their daily work, they may need, they do, and the equipment, the electric equipment right now is still less powerful, like not all of them. Like lawnmowers are pretty comparable, but leaf blowers tend to be less performing compared to their gas counterparts, and they're getting better. So, for a battery backpack electric leaf blower, you're getting like 176 miles per hour at the top speed of blowing material. A gas powered leaf blower is still at 236. So, I mean, there's ways to be efficient with the equipment as well that I'll talk about, but it really does require gardeners to rethink like how they use a leaf blower and when to use it if they're going to go electric. If they don't, they're going to require a lot of batteries. That's really what's going to happen. And some may not, relearn or try to, take on a new practice, and they're just going to need these extra batteries. And if they do, and I think in almost all cases, whether they need extra batteries or not, they do need some level of upgrading their electrical infrastructure to efficiently charge and safely charge. So you don't want people's homes catching on fire. And we also want to make sure that they're not up all night trying to switch the plugs to charge things. And so I've included some power management systems, and the middle picture is more of like the batteries just to see the pricing as well. So for these backpack batteries without the discount, it's about $1,500 for an extra battery for the backpack. But with the discount, you can get them at $450 right now. And so it's going to be really imperative for the gardeners to, again, use the equipment efficiently so they don't need so many batteries. But regardless, having a power management system like the one above, it's and you can kind of hook them up all together, those green kind of smart chargers, And then what'll happen is overnight, maybe 2 of them are charging. Once those 2 batteries are full, then it'll go to the next 2 circuits. And it kind of goes on that way. So then somebody's not up all night trying to change their plugs to charge their battery. And then there's also a portable one, it looks like down here, normally $700, but right now $210. And that's kind of more on the go and trying to charge in the field. And so in our case study, you're going to find that they did have to upgrade their electrical panel. They had to have dedicated circuits of 20 amps, which I learned a lot about. So that they're not kind of blowing out the other items in their home. And so without just looking at the need to purchase extra batteries or the equipment, you know, that the cost of transition can be between $4,000 and $7,000, depending on how big your operation is. If you're kind of a small family business, you know, you might be able to use the power management system alone and not have to do so many upgrades. And so that's just something to consider that gardeners will have to consider. So when we presented this to City Council in October, there was a strong kind of preference to find a case study to see who has transitioned or to get a gardener to transition. And I did find EnviroViews, Armando Vega, he's one of the owners of the company. It's a 2nd generation family owned business. They've got about 30 employees. And they serve mainly like large HOAs, residential complexes. And they've been able to transition all crews to 80% all electric equipment. So that's lawnmowers, string trimmers, you know, hedge trimmers, leaf blowers. And their goal is to be 100% electric in the next few years. I asked them about their savings, are they experiencing any kind of savings? And they said they did. They were paying about $1,600 a month per crew just to fuel up their gardening equipment. And now they're paying $275 a month in their electricity bill for all crews. And so that's a pretty big win on their bottom line. They did have to retrain their employees to kind of, Armando called it like the love affair with leaf blowers, like just to try to rethink when to use a leaf blower and maybe not blowing away the topsoil on flower beds. And so that was, it was a transition period for the company. And he did say that he didn't need to hire extra labor to complete the jobs. And like I said, he just had to retrain people on how to be more efficient with the equipment. They did have to increase customer rates by 10% just to kind of continue to invest in electric equipment. And the batteries, of course, and they did require a panel upgrade, installing dedicated circuits and using power management systems. He actually got his teenage kids because nobody in his family really wanted to do this. And he did convince them all in the end that this was the best thing to do. But he used his own money to basically kind of pilot with one crew for a year and proved his point. So again, it's one case study, and and that it's most of the businesses that I've come across in Menlo Park are pretty small businesses, like within the family. And so Armando is kind of a bigger company than we probably would see with most gardeners in Menlo Park. And so some of the outreach we've done, Ori was out canvassing and I was out canvassing on bikes and in vehicles a few times a week from November to February, just talking to gardeners. They were not hard to find if you listened or just kind of smelled what was going on. And so I'll talk about kind of what we learned from the one-on-one outreach. We also did 2 live webinars in English and Spanish. So it included the interview with EnviroViews, and we also had a couple of the stores as panelists to kind of talk to gardeners about how to access discounted equipment. They weren't really attended heavily. I think we had like about 2 attendees each time. But I did notice with the recordings that are on our webpage, menlopark.gov/Zelle, ZELE, we've had quite a few views in Spanish and English. I think about like 50 in English and about 12 in the Spanish video. So you can kind of see where people are doing. And we did text and email the links after the recordings were done. We've sent quite a few emails and texts just about pop-up events in Atherton, about gardening equipment and the discount program. We had an online survey as well. I'll go into that a little bit later. We did 2 Saturday events at Celestica Market where we had our public works Spanish-speaking staff who use electric equipment kind of talk to the community in general, but we also ran into a lot of gardeners while we were there. So that was really interesting. And it was a really good project where we had the boards and we're explaining the rules and the impacts. And I think we also learned that a lot of the gardeners' family members really cared about this issue and were wanting to really influence their partners or their children to kind of transition to electric as well. And we did have so many dedicated community volunteers. So there was a lot of people who were just canvassing the neighborhood on their own, giving this information out and kind of referring information back to me about what they're hearing and seeing. So it's been really helpful. And I think it was also a learning experience for the volunteers too, just to kind of understand and hear the concerns of gardeners and what's needed to transition. So what we've been hearing and seeing from professional gardeners is actually many of them already had electric equipment. When I would talk to them, they show me their electric equipment, but they weren't using it here. But they were mainly using it for cities and communities that already had rules for using electric equipment. And the reason why they weren't really using it is because they felt like the battery life is too short. You know, if you're on with the leaf blower, when you're on turbo, the battery will not last more than 20 minutes. And there's different settings on the leaf blower, but I think because gas is so powerful and it's probably always maybe on the turbo setting, I don't know, that it's just kind of that difference in performance and power that they're experiencing. So they're wanting to kind of move on to the next job very quickly. And then they talked a lot about purchasing extra batteries. A few of them I talked to said that the batteries didn't last very long, like less than a couple years, and they were already having to buy more. And then a few of them thought they would need to hire more labor because it just takes longer to complete a job. You know, something that normally takes 40 minutes, they can go on to the next job, might take them an hour now, which adds on to costs and they can lose customers. There also was a kind of hesitation in talking to customers about increased costs. So a lot of the gardeners felt like they would lose customers, but they don't want to pay more for this transition or wouldn't quite understand all that's involved with the transition. And then there was a couple of pieces about enforcement. And so in a lot of them work in Palo Alto where there is already a rule. And kind of the argument is like, well, why I'm still using it in Palo Alto is because I hear another gardener using it. And so it changes the whole pricing landscape. If someone's having to charge more and then someone else is not charging more, they lose their customer. And so they're kind of pointing to like, it just needs to be uniformly enforced so that their pricing market can stay very competitive and realistic for the transition. And a lot of them didn't know about the discount program. They were so happy to receive our flyer on where to go. A lot of them already knew some of the dealers. They just don't go into those stores as often. And so I talked to some of the dealers because I was trying to schedule them for the webinar, and it was pretty funny because they're like, are you the one riding your bike out to these gardeners? Because they keep coming in and saying some girl on a bike is telling him to come here to buy equipment. He's like, but they've been placing very large orders. So it's good to know like some of the information we've been giving out has been used and it's turning into action. So I think that's a really good sign. And almost all of them were aware that they needed to transition at some point, and they knew it was coming. So for the gardener survey results, we had again a low number of participants. We had 12 gardeners respond. We did this survey in June too, and I think we had about 6. And with this outreach, I think we just doubled our number, and that's because we did all the letters and social media and text. But they're definitely a harder group to reach. So it was good that we were doing the one-on-one outreach. But of those gardeners that did respond, which was very small, a majority did agree with starting the enforcement date on July 1st of next year for leaf blowers and string trimmers. But they still did note that the transition was going to have a negative impact on their business. And then there was mixed results on enforcing all of the other equipment. And the concerns they listed about electric equipment, and we've kind of already heard that from the one-on-one, but loss of productivity, some of them identified also in our one-on-one outreach that the equipment was heavier. And I did actually pick up one of those battery packs when I was out at Celestica Market. And I mean, they are heavy, but I haven't really picked up one with a gas either to really compare. But a lot of them talked about like the market needs to improve their ergonomics because it's just like the handheld ones tend to like wear down your wrist a little bit. And again, they cited that it's not as powerful as gas equipment, the high cost to replace batteries, no place to charge batteries while out in the field, and that they needed more education. So did also an online community survey as well. We did webinars as well for the community. We did farmers market events. I just didn't really highlight those so much in this presentation, but we were definitely out there trying to talk to the community about what this means for them if they do their own gardening. And we got quite a bit of respondents from the community. We had 248 homeowners respond and about 63 renters responded. What I found interesting is that 60% of respondents use gardening services. So a large portion of Menlo Park uses professional gardeners, which makes this even more important when we're thinking about the transition and whether or not you can make that leap and how to get the gardeners kind of on board with electric equipment. Most of them supported regulating leaf blowers and string trimmers by July 1st of 2024. A majority did support trying to do it sooner, like January 1st. Half the respondents were mixed on regulating all of the other types of equipment. And the majority did express a willingness to pay more for services to help the gardeners transition. And a lot of the respondents, so these 248 homeowners, and some of the renters were sharing the discount information with their own gardeners. So that was really good as well. And there was a lot of requests for a local incentive rebate program. So a lot of the residents at Celestica Market were saying, well, it's great that there's this incentive for gardeners, but what about us? We do like our own gardening. There's a big cost difference between, electric lawnmowers and gas lawnmowers. And so that was an ask of the community for the city to consider. And there was some residents that also wanted us to offer it to gardeners still, just because this is going to be an ongoing need as well, even though the state is offering this incentive for electric gardening equipment. So the next steps, if the rule is adopted by the city council, is to explore an incentive program for residents, non-gardening businesses, and professional gardeners, and inform and support gardeners about the new rule and how to transition prior to enforcement beginning. So we talked to a lot of cities who are enforcing like a leaf blower ban. And they did note to us that a lot of education and outreach prior is really helpful and can get compliance rates up pretty high by the time you start. And then we're also evaluating enforcement options to implement by 2024. So that's a real key area based on what we heard from gardeners, again, to keep their pricing market competitive and realistic regarding the transition. And then just to educate gardeners and community on how to reduce the use of powered equipment. So like leaving the leaves for the bees, for example, reducing your lawn area. There's like I learned about so many different types of other things, like a grass sweeper that's, doesn't really require any power. It just kind of, it's like a broom or comb for your lawn. So there is other kinds of methods out there to reduce the need for batteries or gas. So the commission process for this. So I just want to let you know that the city council, well, right now it's tentatively scheduled to be considered by the city council on May 23rd for their first reading. So there's usually 2 readings to adopt a rule like this. And it gives the public like at least 2 chances to talk to the city council and before it's finally adopted. And so as a commission, again, you can always ask clarifying questions of staff and then open for public comment and then consider providing final advice to the city council on proposed rules and incentives based on what you've been presented tonight and in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lucky. And so at this point, are there any clarifying questions about clarifying what we heard? Yes, Commissioner.
I have one question regarding the city gardeners. Are they using all electric landscaping equipment now or just some?
They're using some. So I'm working with our Public Works Department on kind of a timeline for us to transition. Because that was one of the things the city council was asking for us to be a leader in that. So yeah, I should have that by the time we go to council, kind of what our transition timeline is. We definitely have electric equipment that we're using.
And then the city workers will be subject to the same rules,
Yes.
presumably along the same time frame, but hopefully go faster.
Right.
To learn from that. Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Evans.
Currently, there's a rule that you can't use a gas leaf blower on Spare the Air Days.
Right.
In Menlo Park. Will there be a similar rule for electric leaf blowers?
I don't believe so because they're not gas powered and not emitting, so they're considered zero emission equipment. So they
Okay.
should be able to operate during the Spare the Air Day.
Okay. And regarding the enforcement fines issue, the way I understand that how you've laid it out, that wouldn't be specified or figured out to the detail until after the city adopted the ordinance?
Yeah, I think, well, what we do know is that there's going to be a resource impact. So what kind of staffing level or what kind of other services to implement the enforcement is kind of what we're looking into, and that'll be, it won't be included in quite so much detail with the city council meeting, but it's kind of rethinking like how we do code enforcement, for example, and who it applies to, sorry.
Well, for example, are we going to decide on the fines, the actual number?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So the fines. So right now, the city attorney's office is evaluating our administrative citation ordinance or rule. And, you know, so that would be the overarching kind of policy that would kind of provide how we give penalties out for violations of these proposed rules. So it's kind of a separate chapter, but you know, any kind of violation, like whether it's noise ordinance or like a code violation for a building, they all fall under this one kind of rule making that we're currently updating. Because it's not as strong as it could be.
Okay. I think those are the only clarifying questions I have.
Yes.
Okay,
Commissioner
and
Smith.
so I'll just add to that the administrative citation ordinance update is likely to go in the next, well, maybe at the same time as this as well, to the city council, so May 23rd or shortly thereafter.
Would there be a uniform fine for the violation of
Of a municipal, yeah,
municipal ordinance, regardless whether it's noise or leaf
Right.
blowers or whatever? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I think one area where the city council may have a lot of concern is the disruption to what are relatively small businesses, the capital outlay required at the beginning, but also the ongoing capital outlay for more batteries, potentially more labor, you know, with 4K being what feels like the minimum, but potentially even greater than that. And as I understood the incentives, there's a state incentive that's likely going to run out of money before they can access it. There's not a local incentive, and that local incentive would only be for probably geared toward homeowners. So it feels a little bit like the professional gardeners are out in the cold. And I'm just curious if I'm reading that the right way. And if I was on city council, I'd push back on that a little bit because of the impact of small businesses. And I'm just curious if I am hearing that right.
so the proposed incentive would still, so we'd be looking at different tiers of incentives, so one for residents and non-gardening businesses, and also probably like a higher rebate for gardeners.
Okay, so it'd be a two-tiered local incentives. So if the state money runs out,
Mhm.
there's a potential still to cover
Yeah.
professional gardeners with the local incentive.
Right.
And then would that be ongoing if their costs go up, but they're not able to increase prices? I guess I just, as a council member, I'd be worried about putting half of these folks out of business.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but I can see that.
Yeah, so I mean, the incentive program would likely run at least, a couple years or more. Again, so if we're starting about now or in the next few months and educating and working on a local incentive or a Menlo Park incentive. By the time that we enforce the ordinance, that incentive will still be going. Again, because we're probably going to see some violations and we want to offer kind of ways to transition or get people to at least not have the financial hardship to get the equipment so that we don't want to keep penalizing because they just can't get the equipment because it's too expensive and the state money is no longer available.
Right, and get the equipment and also continue to operate the equipment at a higher cost point. I mean, that's sort of where I'm also curious, because the 10% increase in customer rates may or may not fly. And I'm not trying to play devil's advocate, but I could see that being a barrier to, you don't want to hurt local business kind of a thing, so. Anyway.
Okay, and so at this point, we're still asking only clarifying questions. So asking what was in the presentation. And then we'll have a nice wide ranging discussion.
I'll hold off. I think it's clarifying, but I don't know for sure.
So I guess at this point, we could let the public make comment and then have a full commission discussion.
Thank you, Chair Cabot. So if there are any members of the public who are attending virtually, we don't have any members of the public right now in person, but you can use the raised hand feature, which is at the bottom of the Zoom screen, or sometimes you can access it next to your name with the 3 dots and select the raised hand feature, and I'll be able to unmute you and you can speak on this topic of proposed rules for gas powered gardening equipment and an incentive program for, again, up to 3 minutes for the commission. And with that, I do see a couple hands raised. So our first speaker is Bernard Klaus.
Well, hi, I'm glad the spare the air topic came up. And the reason is, I think that's actually a reason to hasten this along. And the reason being that I've learned from the police and confirmed by the mayor that that's not enforced. So, that's going to be an ongoing problem until the gas powered leaf blowers go away. I don't think, I didn't have any hope of that changing from what I heard. So I think that's another reason to try to accelerate this. Menlo Park should be a leader in this area, not. Yeah, we saw the list of all the other cities that have been doing this for, decades. I've never understood what we're waiting for. So thanks for having this on the table.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so our next speaker is Eduardo Legree-Gilparts.
Yep, that's me. Hi. So member of the public. So let's see. Big kudos on tying the violation to the property owner. I think that will help a lot. And big kudos in recognizing the importance of having a level playing field for the gardeners. I think it seems to me that that's the key thing. Is like if the gardeners are all in the same level field, then they can charge differently. But I do have a separate question, and this might actually be not within the scope, but I've always thought about gas blowers as being a problem related to noise. But I recently was talking with somebody, an arborist and a gardener, and then I started looking, and what I read is that it's a problem on 2 fronts. One is on the pollen and other material that they put in the air for asthma and other sufferers, but also is bad for the tree roots. And this seems to be a well-known problem, that blowing on the topsoil, it's actually causing damage to to the roots, and that is a significant reason why we're having trees topple and have tree failure. So I'm sure that it seems to me that this is not the right time to bring that general topic, but it seems to me that's an important topic to keep in mind, is that the data I've seen is that blowers in general are bad, not just gas blowers. And I was talking with somebody who said, oh, we brought this up a long time ago. The Landscape Association accepts that it's true, but they have managed to keep it out of the discussion. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments?
Yes. We have Brian Kissel.
I just had a quick question about the comment about the state funding likely to run out before, all of the Menlo Park servicing providers will have made the transition. Have we put together any kind of financial model of what we think Menlo Park city government is going to have to provide in subsidy dollars to support the transition for both the professional gardeners as well as homeowners? That's the end of my question.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we've got last call for public comment on proposed rules for gas powered gardening equipment and a Menlo Park incentive. And you can use the raise hand feature on your screen or next to your name in the participant list. I do not see any hands raised at this time.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Lucky. Before we start the commission discussion, do you have any replies you'd like to make on any of the points raised by the public?
Yeah, so to the question about kind of what is the kind of financial analysis or the price point or incentive that would be needed for professional gardeners. So we've kind of looked at overall kind of the infrastructure needs, if they need an electrical panel upgrade or if they need some of these power management systems, and trying to also look at what other local cities are offering. And try to find a point that'll work. I mean, there's potential to kind of maybe reach back out to gardeners and ask them kind of what would be, a potential, point where they would have a cost share. But I think it's pretty recognized, like even with the state incentive program, that they're going to have to put additional money into, again, getting a dedicated circuit or some kind of power management system. I will say that Redwood City and San Mateo, the city of San Mateo, offer rebates to residents and gardeners, even with the state incentive or discount program running. So for residents, they provide up to a $250 rebate, and for professional gardeners, it's up to $500. And this is mainly for leaf blowers, so it's not for other equipment. And so since we're looking at first leaf blowers and string trimmers, I mean, we're gonna have to factor that point in, that they're having to get two pieces of equipment, not just one. I know Silicon Valley Clean Energy offers a discount through their appliance portal. It's $50. So there's kind of like there's a wide range. And so we can certainly reach out to these other organizations to find out kind of why did you choose that particular price incentive.
Thank you. So now we can throw it open for full commission discussion about the recommendations to council and exploration of how to move forward with this. Yes, Commissioner McKenna.
Just a question. First of all, thank you, Rebecca, for doing all this work. It's really impressive. And I think an ordinance like this would benefit the city and its residents, and even in the long run, the workers doing the work. And I know it's different, but it's somewhat related to the climate action plan. I'm just curious if you mentioned this or I missed it elsewhere, but you know, for example, if every building in the city were electrified, the reductions would be about 40% in greenhouse gases. Is there a number we can associate with lawn equipment? If it was every lawn equipment was zero emissions, what that would do to the greenhouse gas emissions for the city? Is there a number we could use to kind of gauge?
Yeah, there isn't a number. It's difficult because we need to know the use. I mean, with Armando's example from EnviroViews, like if we could figure out kind of how much he was spending with that $1,600 on each gallon of gas, I mean. But each business operates so differently. And I think it's tough with these mobile emissions that we can't necessarily quite track as easily. You know, we get our greenhouse gas inventory from PG&E data, which is pretty accurate because it's coming straight from your meters. And so we're able to calculate our greenhouse gas emissions, whereas this is a little bit trickier. So I think I've like,
Is there a ballpark? Or?
I don't have a ballpark. Yeah, so that's,
Do we know how many crews Armando had? Just,
he had 6.
okay, tomorrow I can.
6 or 5, 5 or 6, yeah.
I mean, I would just say, I don't know that I know a number, and I'm gonna guess that the greenhouse gas emission percentage is very, very low. I mean, maybe. I'm just gonna throw this out, maybe 1%. So really it's public health emissions that I think this meaningfully addresses. And I also wanted to thank you for putting together such a thorough presentation. It's clear that you put a lot of work into it, and you also to get all of this going in the first place. So thank you for that. And I wanted to say, I really appreciate the fact that you, if this passes, have the onus on the home and building owner to deal with the burden of enforcement, keeping the workers safe, literally, from pollution and from having to deal with those sorts of penalties. But
You have to choose.
Commissioner Elphick.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to Commissioner McKenna's point that about greenhouse gases, and thank you, Commissioner Evans. I think that that's correct, that it really isn't a greenhouse gas initiative. It just happens to fall under the Environmental Quality Commission's purview, and not everything. I mean, as we know, we cover trees as well, and I think it's a much more important. I mean, not important, but it's a much bigger issue than just how little greenhouse gases these machines actually emit. Besides operator health and residential health, environmental degradation, as I think one of the callers was speaking of, the removal of topsoil, but also insect habitat. And as we know, that insect population is starting to die dramatically, and we need pollinators, et cetera, et cetera. Noise, of course, pollen. I mean, this is why I brought up the spare the air issue, because the electric leaf blowers equally spread particulate matter into the air. And I don't know the technicalities of why a day is called a spare the air day versus not. What are the components that are of concern? But to me, that's of great concern on a day that would be called a spare the air day, to have dust and pollen and chemical residue from the roadways being blown into the air. Should, I think, be considered on those particular days as well. And I wanted to speak to the question about the burden on the gardening business. And I realize that there's no way around the fact that it is going to be a burden on these small businesses. And I think that a local incentive from Menlo Park to ease that as much as possible is a great idea. Hopefully we can find money for that and we can implement that. But as your survey showed, most of the gardener employing residents of Menlo Park are willing to pay more for this. I think that shows a little bit of a recognition of not just the noise factor, but just that this is the way that we need to go for the overall planet's health and Menlo Park's health, and people are willing to pay a little extra for it. So I don't think we need to worry too much about people losing gardeners. I mean, they might not be happy to pay 10% more, but they're not also not gonna wanna do their own gardening, so they're gonna pay it, in my opinion. And I have one more point, and that was, it goes back to, no, I'll have to jump back in when I can think of that other point. Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, so I'll echo, like, this feels great because there's a lot of preliminary work there that if I was a city council member, I would want to see a lot of that foundational work done. So kudos to that. So I was trying to put myself, if I was faced with having to take a vote on this for the city, I put myself in their shoes, and one thing that I'd recommend is an implementation plan, a few steps toward an implementation plan that's more detailed than what's up there, that would build confidence in the city council and having a yes vote. And there were three things that I was jotting down some notes. One is a deeper understanding of the businesses registered in Menlo Park and the surrounding cities that are professional gardeners. Sounds like a lot of work, but then I think about that, and there's not going to be 5,000 of them. There's probably going to be, less than 50. I don't know what the number is, but having a good sense of how many professional gardening outfits there are that would potentially service Menlo Park, even if it's an estimate. Gathering that data and having more focused outreach to those so that we can convert those people first and really have a targeted set to say, oh, there's 50 businesses that typically serve Menlo Park and 25 of them are converted through the incentive, and like having that more factual conversion rate through identifying who these folks are would be one recommendation for implementation. The second would be, could we have a cooperative model to cover some of these incentives as well with surrounding cities? Because the businesses obviously won't be just in Menlo Park. They'll be in sort of a proximity of, I don't know, 10 zip codes or whatever it is. But working with other cities to either bring us a little more up to speed where we're behind, or, pull it forward other cities as well that might not be as advanced, that are around us, Cupertino or Sunnyvale or some of those cities, but really looking at it as a cooperative model for incentives, because I think the third point, when you rolled out the 250 for residents and 500 for professional gardeners, that's a really good data point. So the third recommendation is, could we find a way to, in implementation, and put this forward as something that staff is thinking about, clustering discounts together, because $500 isn't gonna, as a small business, it's not gonna go very far. And the 10% is a slightly misleading cost recovery model. So a $7,000 outlay, 10% per customer, it could take them 4 years to recover those costs. So I don't think it's just that they'll increase their prices and magically they'll make up a very large potential gap. That could put a real strain on these businesses. So if we could help maybe find 5 investments that are clustered together and somehow either link it or make it simpler. But I think outlining in the very last stretch a more detailed implementation plan that could happen, that I think would give city council more confidence to vote for something that I could see the counterpoint where this would feel punitive to small business. And I think there's just ways around that might nudge them forward to take the vote. So I don't know how everybody feels about that. But
I have a couple clarifying, so just on so we were able from our business license database to figure out about how many gardeners, and that's who we were basically emailing, texting. A lot of, I would want to say like probably about 50 of them, we got quite a return on some of the letter, like return service on some of the letters. But then again, from our outreach, we had about 50 gardeners that we talked to who weren't in our
Yeah,
daily
that's,
basis as well.
it's sort of gotta be collaborative, right?
Um,
Because they're gonna be.
But we're definitely, yeah, it was definitely all targeting Menlo Park
Yeah.
gardeners. And so I would say we probably have about 300
300 based in Menlo Park or servicing Menlo Park?
servicing Menlo Park.
Okay.
The ones based are kind of the larger companies. Actually, when I was picking up my storyboards for the Celeste Market, I think Gachana, they're like right next door in the Bellhaven neighborhood. Yeah. So I left them a bunch of flyers on their desk. They weren't there. But those are kind of the ones that are largely based in Menlo Park, and we use some of our own contractors for the city as well. And we talked to them about like what the transition would take. And one of them was, I would say like a little bit more supportive than the other. But I again, because they should be able to be accessing the incentives and being able to at least transition on that front.
But I think even
But-
adding those numbers in and saying like, hey, there's 300, we actually talked to 50, I think it shows confidence to city council to say, we know what that number is. It's fairly finite. Outreach actually works. We covered was 50. That's a good, that's 20% or whatever, less than 20%. Like, I think that would probably make me as a potential, voter on this go, oh yeah, we can kind of get there pretty quickly, I think. Anyway, that's.
Yeah. And I will say that Armando, when he looked at how long it took to get the return on the investment, he said 2 years.
Okay, yeah, but that's an important thing to calculate, right? Because the 10% is really, it's a great indicator, but it's not a recovery. Yeah, it's not a return on invested cost or whatever. And if you had a figure like that to say, it's gonna take 2 or 3 years, so that's the time of incentive we feel like it's gonna be needed. Because I also don't want to feel like it's an eternal draw on the city budget.
Right. And again, we're not asking them to convert all equipment right away.
Yeah.
It's 2.
Yeah.
And Armando was doing like 80% of his equipment. So I think there's kind of a bit of difference even in looking at it from that perspective as well.
That wasn't totally clear. I thought it was 80% of his leaf blowers and
No. It was 80% of all
all
of
of
his
the.
gardening equipment.
Okay, so I can insert that. too.
Yeah.
Because-
These are good questions. So that's good.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to echo the appreciation that others have shared. I know this has been a lot of work for you, and also Leah, thank you for your kicking this off. So it's clear we need to move away from this gas gardening equipment. And I'm glad that the report that you shared really highlights the impact of professional gardeners. There were a couple of ideas that came through for me. So I wanted to echo Commissioner Schmidt's idea about potentially partnering up with other cities to offer an incentive. And since Atherton is moving potentially along a similar
are.
timeframe,
Yeah.
that might be a really great place to partner. And maybe Redwood City. In talking with the person who works on my garden, he said he's a part of a union of gardeners that's based in Redwood City. So that's a potential other place to learn more, because I think they are servicing Menlo Park, even if they don't live. I don't know if it only is people who live, gardeners who live in Redwood City, but that's a resource we might tap. I also want, I was hesitant to raise the concern that Eduardo raised earlier about like, why are we having leaf blowers at all? Because we're encouraging this transition away from gas to electric. But I think the bigger question is, should we be doing this at all? And I think it raises some bigger, cultural issues, maybe not cultural issues, but like, how are we tending to the land that we have? Because the trees are really important, the insects are really important, and if leaf blowers, whether they're gas or electric, are impacting that, should we go even farther? But I was hesitant to raise that because it seems like too much, but I just wanted to, I guess, echo Eduardo's comment. I'm really glad though that we're here talking about this. I feel like we're moving in the right direction. And I really like the idea of coming up with a local incentive to offset at least that initial cost. Like, yeah, like let's help people make that transition, because I am concerned about the impact to our local businesses.
I wanted to make a couple of comments too, and building upon some of these. I agree with Mr. Kissel that it makes sense to make some financial model maybe and show it to the city about what is the estimate of what incentives would cost the city if the city were to offer incentives. And I have just a feeling of it, and I'm grounded in my house, where I don't have professional gardeners, I just do it myself, and then my neighbors use different farms that blow things. And so it all accumulates with me. And so then if the city had incentives, they would get quieter blowers. And maybe the speed limit would come down to 175 miles an hour. And they would grapple with that. And then but maybe if they were incented to have that yard broom or whatever that was, that did some of the work without blowing, and that was what the city put incentives towards instead of electric blowing. That might be interesting. Do that, but yeah, it gets strange. And then I was trying to picture what happens if you offer an incentive to the residents then. And so there are, say, 12,000 households, and we are all paying into Menlo Park, and half of us get the incentive and the other half pay it. And so we're just shuffling a lot of money around between residents. It's going to residents, which feels like, do I need to launder all that money through a city program to my neighbors? And it felt inefficient to me. And so one idea was not to have a residential incentive, but to just be trying to support the businesses that you're trying to support. So just a little worry I had. Then one more idea that came up from watching the presentation and hearing about that, the difficulty sometimes for the gardening firm to talk to their client. Maybe include in the presentation a slide with a draft of a picture of, here's a flyer the city could produce that the gardeners can hand to the clients that says the city's doing these following things, that, and this is what these things for electric gardening equipment, and this will help us transition, help us be a better neighbor to your two adjacent neighbors when we're doing your yard. And just, have something that the gardener can hand out that's maybe has the city logo and shows that the gardeners is part of the process of becoming a better neighbor to this person's neighbors. And kind of get everyone involved in that. Let's see, and then I think that's it for me.
I should say, Rebecca, I support what you've presented. I think it's extremely thorough, and I'm hearing a lot of good ideas. I guess I also want to be sensitive to the fact that staff's time is, it's a finite resource. And we know that, or at least I hope that, outreach for building electrification, possibly new reach codes is coming around the corner, and that may take some time as well. And so I think these are all really good ideas. I also want to be really careful about asking you to do too much more. You've done so much already. And just putting so much on your plate when in fact, what you have here looks really meaningful and well-researched. And at some point, hopefully soon, if we're going to meet our greenhouse gas goals, we're going to need to pivot into building electrification. And so I just want to be sensitive to your time, making sure that we don't ask too much so that we can get this passed. And it's great, right? I think it's going to be wonderful for public health and for the health of the gardeners, and then continue to move forward.
Just a quick question is, I think part of I definitely echo that, but at the same time, what's the likelihood that as is this passes city council? I mean, do we have a sense of, because I feel like it was less about burdening staff, because I actually thought that a lot of that would sit with whoever would handle enforcement and implementation. But if it sits with you two, then that doesn't feel as meaningful to do, like track the number of professional gardeners and then, focus on that kind of stuff. But it's hard to gauge as is, like, do we feel this is a slam dunk? Do we feel like there's not much more that they're gonna need because you responded after our first round? I mean, I'm just curious. I hate for this thing to keep going and prolonging and prolonging and prolonging, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Well, the city council looks to the commission for their advice. I mean, they don't always agree sometimes, but I mean, that's the role, you know, even if it is something that's gonna challenge them. But I appreciate, yeah, also kind of thinking through what can be done to kind of, yeah, move it into a position where everyone feels comfortable and confident that this is a direction that everyone can do at every level in the city and no matter who you are.
Yes, Commissioner McKinnon.
Well, just sort of echoing those comments, maybe taking it up a level, looking more big picture, you know, the city declared a climate emergency in 2019, I believe, and we have a climate action plan and we have goals that are in that plan. And we have limited city resources, both in time and money. And so the city council also determined that climate action was a priority for this year. And so I would just want to like understand what resources something like this might take away from maybe a bigger priority of addressing the climate emergency and having the resources available to the city to reach the goals in the climate action plan. So I don't know if there's any sort of study that needs to be done or has been done or basic understanding of how passing an ordinance like this may or may not burden the city's ability to reach the goals of the climate action plan.
That's a good topic. I mean, I would say after ordinance adoption, you know, there are some pieces that can kind of peel off from sustainability, like the enforcement and how that's going to work. We won't be doing enforcement, but the incentive program, again, there's opportunities not kind of within, you know, my position or either Ori or I don't know if you guys met Liz yet, but she'll be coming next meeting. And finding kind of, you know, because I did kind of check around the other cities as well. Like, could we, like, is there kind of like a system that they have in place for issuing the rebates? And it's really their sustainability staff that are doing it. But they have pretty low participation, I'd say. Like, it's not taking up a great deal of their time, but they don't also have any rules that they're proposing at this time. So I definitely think it would be less resources than what was put into this original component where we're really trying to get feedback. We're trying to find out, like, is there something we're missing in this rule that we need to consider or make, you know, certain concessions on or anything else like that. It's more at this next stage, educating and kind of having the information on our webpage, maybe recording a webinar in English and Spanish on how to transition and kind of to continue to promote like how others are doing it. And then, yeah, more of that, maybe the canvassing, I would say the canvassing that we did around neighborhoods, you know, it's about 20 to 30 hours of work. And again, to kind of spread out over time. And so probably would, you know, do something like that before enforcement begins or like 6 months before it begins. People just kind of know. Because like I said, a lot of people don't necessarily register for business licenses in the city as well, because they're kind of mobile. Maybe they're just taking on a client for a few weeks. And so they're kind of a hard group to capture in that way. But I mean, we have a pretty good number in our database. So, I mean, there's a large portion of them that are actively, and we also did look at inactive business licenses as well. So it was like a whole accumulation. So I would say like the active is probably 150.
Because what I'm hearing from Commissioners Evans and McKenna is a concern, like if we push this forward, will we not be able to make progress on a second reach code this year?
No,
Like if we had to choose between one or the other, like I'm hoping it's not an either or, but if it
No.
was, my sense is that some of us would
Yeah.
say, let's not do the Zelly thing, let's do the other.
right. I think it's the way it's being timed and kind of just some of the way that the timeline is working out for both the projects of reach codes for existing buildings and this.
Mhm.
It's you know, it's a load that's manageable.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
And remember, we did just hire a management analyst that we've been trying to recruit and was added to the budget like last year. So,
And but a quick follow-on question is, it just goes back to, I think we're assuming that a lot of it falls on city staff, but there are a lot of community nonprofits out there, so I'm thinking of like CRC and Violet and Crew and Marlin and everybody else, you know, I think these are impactful issues, especially with the 1 hour of leaf blower use equals an 1,100-mile drive, that I feel like, you know, even our EV stuff, this is gonna probably rise a little above it, given some of that data. So that could, if we could show, you know, this is pretty impactful, it's a bit more low-hanging fruit than getting everybody to convert to EVs and some other things. And we could potentially work with community nonprofits to, you know, either target, I totally take the point of not having it all fall on city staff, and the alternative model is, you know, 350 CRC, other folks. I mean, we're doing work and we can help get the word out there as well, not as official representatives of the city, but just building awareness. And so, I mean, that could be something to mention if you're comfortable with it. I think people would volunteer to help.
So maybe then one idea would be to, I'm just gonna throw this out there for the sake of brainstorming. If we were to collectively support this, do it in a way where part of our recommendation would be minimizing or respecting staff's time and recognizing that they will likely need to be shifting their priorities to other climate action items soon, and that we want to make sure that all the implementation doesn't fall on you. There's a much more sophisticated way to word it, but some type of caveat that we support what you have here, as long as it doesn't preclude and overly burden you and your staff as you attempt to continue working on these other objectives. I don't know. What do you think, Rebecca, about something like that?
I would defer to Chair Cabot. I think,
Okay.
Thanks. So I'm making a note of that and thinking that, okay, this is an action item for us to make a recommendation to council, and so we can structure that into a motion. And it sounded like you're suggesting something along the lines of moving a recommendation that council consider a Zelli ordinance, like the one proposed by staff, and structured in a way that respects staff's time needed in general climate preservation efforts unrelated to the criteria, pollutants, and noise associated with leaf blowers, but that they're both issues of importance to the community, and they both need progress. So I definitely am sympathetic to that balance point. And then I think the other thing that's happened is that we've been able to share ideas with staff about what we think will help in answering the questions that will come for council about how big an effort, who works on it, what are the financial impacts of different types of incentives, if they're offered just to the professional firms or both professional firms and residents. Yeah, so I think there's a lot for council to consider, and I like the idea of recommending a balance in what staff has on their plate, because that's something we often hear when we ask for new efforts, is that staff is limited, and so they need to prioritize. Something has to give. But in the climate emergency, we're running out of time to keep pushing the climate action on. All right, is there a motion?
Well, I guess I just had a question to your comment, which is can the city council as a group decide that the city has enough resources to do both. Basically, like, can we put it on the city council to say, we support this ordinance only if it does not impact or impair the city's ability to meet its climate action plan goals? Is that something that we can put on the council to decide?
I have an idea, and I'd like to hear what that says.
I think it's in some ways, yes. I mean, ultimately, the city manager is kind of taking what the city council has prioritized or has authorized. And yeah, it is our job to kind of say, are we making a trade-off here? Is it, if we go pursue this, and do this work after it's adopted, will it impact any other work? And based on kind of what I foresee and kind of where the timelines line up for the REACH codes, I don't see it having that kind of impact where all of a sudden we're going to be so neck deep in implementation of ZELI that we won't be able to work on these other items because we have capacity now. So remember, before it was just me. When most of you started, I think, and we've added, a few folks to the team to kind of really help cover a lot of these different topics that are of interest to the community and the city council, while still continuing to work on our climate action plan.
And maybe to circumvent some of that too, I mean, I'd love to see something explicitly stating, we're gonna engage community nonprofit folks to help. Like, I think that's a super valid concern, are we doing even with step 3, are we doing too much when there's some heavy hitting things coming down the pipe? And I hear that you've got a window, but I mean, things never go according to plan, right? So, like another big set of storms come through and then you lose 2 months of recovering and all that. So I'd love to see something explicit in what we put forward as there's going to be a concerted effort to find nonprofits. I'm centering on nonprofits, but people who are willing to kind of pitch in and supplement city resources in the right way, following all the rules, to get rid of that burden. Like, that's one way to alleviate that concern that's very specific and explicit. And I'd love to see that be part of what we put forward.
Right, and is somebody able to put forward a motion to do that?
Give it a shot. I think the motion would be that we fully support the ZELI ordinance as proposed, as long as it does not impact in any way the city's ability to reach the goals outlined in the climate action plan.
Right, and is there
Second.
a second?
Actually, can I
Seconded.
recommend it? Can I do a friendly amendment?
Yeah,
I really like what you have.
One moment,
Oh,
we have to
excuse me.
get the,
Sorry.
seconded by,
Okay.
by Commissioner Headley. All right,
I think that was spot on. I'd like to find a way to signal to council that, that specifically the point of concern is building electrification reach codes, because we know that if we don't get, well, I know that if we don't get a new reach code on the books, that we will not get anywhere close to our climate action plan. So I wonder if there's a way to add just a little phrase at the end, specifically as it relates to a potential building electrification reach code. I realize that's getting more detailed and it's getting a little bit more prescriptive, but I guess I feel like it's worth calling it out.
I'm the same, I feel like that got really close, that felt a little broad and like any general impact to the climate, that could be like anything. right?
Anything.
So if we, yeah, I'd love that specificity, and also, adding something to say by leveraging resources and partners in the community, or whatever word we want to use, like clearly spelling out how we're not going to have that impact. Because I think just saying, oh, we're gonna we're gonna magically not have an impact on staff, like I'd go, well, how, you know? So like having a phrase that by leveraging community relationships.
As a matter of process, do we want, I remember watching one of the,
Yes.
yeah, do we want to type it up so we can all see it and?
Here, thank you. Oh, am I taking this? Okay, it's fine when two people are on sharing. Thank you, Ori.
Sorry, can you
Just for
see
cl-
this?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, and maybe for
Okay.
the
I'm
commissioners.
gonna try to select it and highlight it. Give me just 1 second.
Okay.
Mine
Maybe
is
just for
very good.
for our own clarity in providing your recommendation to the city council, so when you're saying recommend support. I think we want to say support, Ori.
Yeah,
Not consider, recommend to the city council, they
Approve,
approve.
yeah,
mhm.
and then and you want to, do you want to say the rules and local or Menlo Park incentive? Or just want to make sure we have clarity on what the entire commission's. Because there's two parts, right? There's the proposed rules and then there's the incentives.
Okay. But the local incentive doesn't have that much meat to it yet, right?
Right, okay, but that you're generally supportive
Maybe
of
that's where the
offering.
word consider, comes in, and consider.
Okay, so approve the Zelly rules.
Yeah.
And consider local incentive.
And Commissioner McKenna, and I like this emphasis, provided it does not, he said, in any way limit. I think that makes it stronger.
Yeah, but I think
Oh, but unrealistic.
that's a little, it's too broad, but
Um,
I think limit,
It's not,
Yes,
I hear you.
does not meaningfully limit.
Or does not prohibit.
it's less, I mean, when I'm looking at this, it's less, I think that's a good statement, it just. It doesn't go far enough to say, okay, well, how are you gonna do that? So
Yeah,
like,
so-
we maybe have a second sentence in
so
there.
you have
that says-
another,
You know, something really simple that says, for implementation, city staff, well, you know, to minimize impact. City staff will work with community.
Or we could even say
Sure.
something like, we recommend that city staff leverage blah, blah, blah. So it's a little lighter. I don't know if that really meets your needs.
Yeah, no, it's fine, I just wanna call out, like, I would ask. The only reaction to John's statement is it's because, well, how are you gonna do that? Because everything draws from the resource, right? So
Yeah.
your
but I feel like-
replacement thing is,
I'm-
but yeah, so I.
Sorry.
No, I think recommend is fine, as long as it's called out as a specific way that we'd recommend the city does it that way. So, or maybe something like,
So I think, or maybe it becomes a three-part thing, that one part is. Approve the Zelli ordinance rules proposed by staff. Part two is.
yeah,
And consider a local incentive. And part three is about.
implementation, it's.
Exploring. Partnership with community organizations.
That makes sense.
Yeah, cause you break after incentive, I think, yeah, exactly, right, and then. Explore implementation. Yeah, community. Explore community relationships. For implementation
In order that.
Yeah, in order that, yeah, exactly, and then the rest of John's, in order to minimum,
Well, actually, that
Or to
provided it
mitigate
could,
it like that.
yeah, exactly. Cause that first little clause there is the how. How do you make sure it doesn't impact the cities of the really, well, you got partners out there or community people out there. Yeah. Some that goes close.
right, but the bulk of it down there is, I think there's a missing term in front of does not limit. The whole thing is done, all three parts are done in a way to not,
Right, I think that last piece applied to the first and second bullet, not just the third bullet.
right,
So we need to find a way,
Oh, I see.
yeah,
and so maybe it's just break the in order that off of it to become its own dangling.
yeah,
Maybe
so
you could
fourth
just-
bullet,
Say all of the above are contingent upon,
Yes.
yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, or I think we're making another bullet point, it's, it
Yeah,
would
maybe
say like
it's-
all of the above,
Yeah, so that in order becomes a fourth bullet.
fourth bullet, yeah.
can we put the, no,
Yeah, all of the. What is it? What? Sorry, say it again,
what? I was, wording,
for the, yeah, fourth bullet,
um,
You said all of the above is contingent.
yeah.
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 Makes sense.
Sorry. I just.
So the fourth bullet is,
No, it's
all of
perfect.
the above is contingent upon. On the city's ability. To remove, yeah, remove an order. Thank you, Howard, so much. I realize you're hearing us all through your room voices.
You could say all of the above must not limit the city's ability.
Oh, yeah. All of the above must not limit.
And maybe it becomes that fourth bullet to the extent that all of the above. Does not limit.
Oh. You're saying.
You could even take out as it relates to, you could just say specifically the second. The building
Yeah.
electric, like just to simplify the language, it's specifically. The building electrification reach code, or, you know, like, there's a little bit of. Tightening.
Yeah.
Do we want to say the existing building
Yeah,
electrification?
Yeah.
great.
Alrighty. So our does that motion look to the maker?
I'm reading it.
Did
Could we
do we
say
did we
however?
land on provided or?
Yeah, I was gonna say provided or however, perfect, or.
Turns it to doesn't limit, right?
We could just say the above instead of all of the above.
Yeah. To me, that looks like it makes the
Yeah.
commission's intent clear to council.
He's adding provided that.
That's
Yeah,
at the end of three.
provided to the third bullet.
Ah. Okay. Provided,
Could we say the above does not limit the city's ability to make progress on climate action plan items and most specifically?
or a comment. Yeah, yes, yes, I like John's. Commissioner McKenna.
Particularly, most specifically.
Most particularly.
Good with that.
That feels good too, because you could say, hey, you're thinking about it, you don't have to rattle off any of those things I was saying, but you could say, hey, we're also thinking about implementation. You know, we're doing the rules, we're doing the incentive, we're thinking through the best way to implement this, so it doesn't have an impact on our resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gives you that little extra.
Through the chair, could we clarify if most specifically or most, what was the language requested for the shaded section?
Yeah, most specifically is good.
Thank
All
you.
right. Nice work, Ori.
Thank you, Ori.
Thank you. And so
Into the vote.
sounds like we're ready for a vote.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion made by McKenna and seconded by Headley?
Aye.
See all yeses for those who are present in the room. We don't have any commissioners online.
All right, well, thank you so much. That completes a major milestone for Commissioner Elkins.
And Rebecca. And Rory.
Almost.
That's right.
Rare business again.
A step closer to a major milestone. All right, and that brings us to item C4. And that one,
I have the presentation.
Oh, good.
You can help.
just stand up
Um,
next to the screen and wave my arms. So it's an item bringing up and reporting on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District recent zero NOx rule. And what the implications may be for the city, the climate action plan, and the kind of the market around us. So the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is a 9-county regional district. It has 23 board members, and they make decisions and have a substantial staff that works on reducing the criteria air pollutants in the area, specifically working on nitrous oxides. So that's what the abbreviation NOx is, and also particulate matter. One of the key ones is PM 2.5, which is very small particulate matter, and NOx is actually one of them. That can get in the lungs and get in the bloodstream and distribute itself throughout the body. And that's one of the major pollutants associated with those little gasoline engines. That's the criteria pollutant health damaging thing. Another big source of NOx in the Bay Area is combustion of natural gas in buildings. The amount of NOx coming from that is bigger than the amount of NOx coming from cars. And the cars have catalytic converters, but our furnaces, water heaters, et cetera, don't have catalytic converters. They're not reducing or oxidizing that NOx and getting rid of it. It's coming through. All right, so they had a vote on March 15th on this rule 9.4 and 9.6 to go to a zero NOx standard. And it passed on a vote of 20 to 20 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstained. Next slide. So they've been developing these pollution standards and emission criteria for the Bay Area for a number of years, trying to get in compliance. They are not in compliance. We are not in compliance with federal air quality rules. The Bay Area is too polluted for federal air standards. And so they've been working on it, but they haven't gotten close now. Till now, they finally passed this rule, which would go to 0 NOx furnaces and water heaters. Prior rules just were kind of inching it down little by little. And so the district, as they like to call themselves, they have the type of rulemaking authority to remove the devices from the shelves. And so that's where their level of authority lies. So they don't come out and inspect buildings, but they just get the devices off the shelves. And so they would no longer be installed. Next. So Rule 9.6 applies to water heaters, and Rule 9.4 is very similar. It applies to furnaces. They were developed over 3 years of board and staff working together along with advocates, and they phase out the sale of those NOx emitting water heaters and furnaces. And it starts with tank water heaters, like we're all familiar with, the cylinder in the garage, in 2027. And you can keep your existing water heater as long as you want. It's just that when you go to get a new one, it will be a 0 NOx water heater. And the same type of rule starts in 2029 for furnaces. The rules phase in over a couple of years, starting with lower power things like the tank water heaters in 2027, and getting it up into tankless water heaters that are more powerful by about the year 2030. So it has a phased in process. Next. So the rule does not affect gas cooktops. People can keep their gas cooktops. It doesn't affect gas dryers. It doesn't affect propane fired equipment. So some people have propane fired water heaters in rural areas. It doesn't take away anybody's existing devices. You can keep your gas furnace. You can repair your appliances. So it doesn't prohibit that. And so it just takes the devices off the shelves for when you're replacing things. Next. And we kind of envisioned that people will be replacing these polluting devices with heat pump versions that run on very little electricity and just move heat from the outdoors to the indoors at a new high temperature, or from the garage, say, where the water heater might be, to a new high temperature and put it in a tank of hot water. These are tried and true appliances. That's probably what will be put in place of the polluting ones. And so the decision has included establishing an equitable transition committee that'll be reviewing the transition towards implementation of the market readiness rules. And they will have a review of the state of market readiness 2 years before each of those 2 rules comes into effect. So the tank water heater rule for 2027 will have a review in 2025 of the market readiness, so that the district board can look to see, is the market on track for having a smooth enough transition to saving 85 lives a year. And that's they estimate that the pollution from these devices is killing about 85 people per year every year. And once we get everything switched over to 0 NOx, there's that many more lives that can be saved. Next. All right, so board members, looked at this as a substantial change, which it is. And so they commented that they realize there's a lot of benefits to the rule, but a lot of work needs to be done to prepare the market for that transition to the life-saving devices. And they look forward to seeing that market readiness in 2025. Next. So some of the implications are that this was the type of firm market signal that manufacturers have been waiting for. And in some of my work, I end up hearing from people who talk to manufacturers, and some of them have come forward to say that was the signal they needed. They are converting some of their gas-fired water heater production lines into heat pump water heater production lines. And another market entrant decided that was the signal they needed. They are going to come back into the market and start producing their heat pump water heater that would be a good fit. It's another one of the 120 volt ones that you just plug into a regular outlet. So the manufacturers are getting ready for this, and they're seeing that they need to transition, but the supply chains will need to transition, and the installers will need to transition. And as some of us know from installing them, they take a couple hours longer to install. So the installers will need to be learning that. So there's a lot of work to be doing about how to just get the technology, or not the technology, but the techniques right. And then other air districts, like the South Coast Air District, are looking into doing the same thing, and San Joaquin may look at doing the same thing. And the California Air Resources Board is also looking at this because they voted last fall to vote in 2025 to do the same thing statewide in 2030. So the different agencies, it's like we saw with REACH codes, the different agencies look at each other and they want to make sure everyone's ready to step forward, and nobody likes to be the only one moving, and same thing is happening in these air districts. So it's important that cities and community choice agencies and others work together to help prepare the market so that the rule can be implemented smoothly, so that other agencies can stay in step. Next. All right, so we're looking at it, we're thinking it's going to be a lot of heat pump water heaters will be what will be happening first in 2027. And they need an electric outlet, and these 120 volt ones tend to have about a 9-foot long extension cord, so they can reach 9 feet to either side to find a cord, and they can run on an extension cord in a temporary basis until you want to run a circuit over to it. So they need electricity, can be 120 volts or 240. They need a little drain line where because they condense some water out of the air, because they're like a cold drink that's sucking heat out of the air, and they condense a little bit of moisture like my cold drink sometimes does. And they pump out about a quart of clean water per day. Mine just pumps it out onto the plants in the yard. But you can put it down the drain, and then they need some air for thermal energy. So they gather heat out of the air around them. So something, they don't need a very big space. Some recent experiments with the amazing shrinking room in the laboratory have found that you can get down to a 7 by 7 foot room without vents is enough for it to gather the heat from. Or if your room is even smaller than that, like a closet, it needs at least 2 square feet of air vents in the doorway to let cold air out of the room. And so new warmer air comes in that it can grab heat from. The simplest case are these garage water heaters that a lot of us have, with a laundry sink or washer nearby to just drain that water in. Otherwise it can be pumped out through a little $75 condensate pump. The water can be pumped away. The most complex is a water heater in an internal closet in the center of a house needing a new circuit. Yeah. And next. All right, so those are kind of the cases. I just wanted to get that all out in front of staff and commission about kind of what's happening, and the smooth implementation of those rules will greatly assist in getting close to the city's climate action goals. It's definitely steps in the right direction that help many more people do the right thing because the wrong thing wasn't available. And that turns out to be how we have to work with consumers sometimes. So, I think one of the things to focus on over the next 20 months, or the 20 months coming up to the 2025 review, is what can we all be doing as parts of a city, parts of community choice energy advocates? What can we be doing that help reduce barriers to doing these installations, make the process smooth, make permitting easy, maybe even automatic, where you just get a permit in the mail even though you didn't ask for one. And it says, if you follow the rules, you'll pass the inspection. Here's your permit. Since we no longer charge fees, there was no reason to have you apply, in my opinion. And so then everyone has a permit, and when you're ready, you call for your inspection, and they inspect and they see that you've installed it per code. So there's I think we have to do a radical rethink of how easy we need to make things, because those of us who've done some electrification and realized it's going through all the hoops that people have created is a pretty big lift. We need to figure out, how do we make this easy and automatic if it's going to be the only option ahead of us and the one that preserves the climate. We need to make that easy enough to do. So that's my little presentation about what the Air District ruled on and some of its implications for cities and for commissions. What we might want to think about.
So is this Berkeley Restaurant Association decision gonna have any effect on this? Are these furnaces and water heaters outside of the agencies?
Right, so
Yeah,
yeah, it turns out to be Southern California Gas propped up California Restaurant Association lawsuit against the city of Berkeley for their municipal ordinance banning pipe installations for natural gas. That suit does not have any effect, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but that suit the recent panel findings from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is looking at it as an issue dealing with EPCA, the Energy Performance and Conservation Act. I think it is related to federal efficiency standards for furnaces and water heaters. And this approach by the Air District does not apply to the efficiency of devices. They are acting within their authority at the Air District to manage NOx. And NOx is just a combustion byproduct. And so they're not saying what fuel you have to use.
okay.
They're not saying what efficiency it has to be. They're just saying that you can't have NOx emitting devices.
Okay, and I didn't read that opinion either, or I didn't read the entire opinion myself, but. Okay, but well, here's a question, did the FACMed consider that opinion and make an affirmative decision that it didn't have anything to do with what they were doing?
I don't know yet. The Ninth Circuit panel opinion came out
After.
last Monday.
Yeah.
And so I haven't heard what Bachman thinks of it, the district,
And when the rule was promulgated, when?
March 15th, so ahead of
Ahead of
the
the decision,
panel's
yeah,
decision,
trust.
I guess.
You able to make comments at this time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, public comment first.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, so. Unless there's any clarifying question, like, what did you say? If you want to ask me,
Can you
what did I
repeat
say?
everything?
what was that again?
Okay, other than that, let's let the public comment.
Okay, so if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item, which is information about the Bay Area Air Quality Management District's ruling on new rule about gas appliances, specifically water heaters and furnaces, please raise your hand and I'll be able to unmute you and you can speak to the commission for up to 3 minutes. Do you have one hand raised? Eduardo?
Hi, hi Tom. So you and I have seen many of these questions. So the two cases that I've seen that are tricky are people that use radiant heat, and then the one that seems the hardest one to me is actually a gas, an external tankless gas. So on the radiant heat, at the last Earth Day and Melo-Octotron, I saw some vendors that were doing already had devices that were doing house heating and water heating, and I think that water heating could also be used for radiant heat. So I think that the industry will take care of this one. The one that seems the hardest to me is the tankless water heater, because in that case, the heater is outside the house and there is no space for a tank. So I think all of this is great, and I think that's a limited restricted case, but I would be curious to see what the industry or the regulators are thinking about that particular use case.
right,
That's it.
thank you.
At this time, are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on this agenda item? I do not see any hands raised. Return the meeting back to you, Chair Cabot.
All right, thanks. I'll try to give a quick answer to Mr. Flaherty's question. I agree, those are two tougher cases, and those cases come up further down in time. The first rule to go into effect in 2027 affects water heaters with burner capacity less than 75,000 BTUs per hour, which is smaller than the power of those tankless gas water heaters and isn't the type of thing used for radiant floors. So Mr. Flaherty is right, that those are tougher cases. The market has another couple of years to be working on them before their rule comes up, which is part of this process, but the process is phased from the tank, starting with tank water heaters and getting to the hard cases 4 years later. But I do agree, those are tougher cases and there are ways to handle them. But the market will need, more methods to do it. Okay, so that's, anyway, open for discussion.
Well, just wanted to thank you, Chair Cabot, for an excellent presentation. I think that rule change is a tremendously positive development in progress. And as you said, I think it really signals to the market that this is the way we're going. And it gives the market time to start ramping up production of the products that are going to be needed to satisfy the rule and incentivize the workforce development that will go with it. So I'm really excited about the rule. I think there's still more to do. It does have, requirements that have to be met in order for the rule to go into effect. So I think it's really important for cities to look at ways that they can help the ruling go into effect. And to that point, a group of local organizations, Actera, the Climate Action Leadership Team, Fossil Free Building Silicon Valley, they recently sent out a letter to every council member and city manager and sustainability manager within the 9 counties that the ruling applies to, with an announcement of the rule change, as well as a link to a guide, which can give cities ideas on ways that they can help make sure this ruling goes into effect. Suggestions like Tom that Chair Cabot mentioned, but outreach and education to the public is really important, and to the workforce, working on permitting streamlining, helping that workforce development move along in any way that cities or counties can. And also, there was one other point I wanted to make, which is, and just partnering with the community choice energy aggregation organizations like SVC, EPC, et cetera. They can be really valuable resources for cities to leverage. So I just wanted to highlight that resource is available to all of the leaders within the county, the 9 counties.
Are you able to share it through Rebecca with the commission?
Yeah, I can forward it to you if you don't have it already.
I just want to say, your presentation was excellent, and I am profoundly grateful for all the work that you contributed to this regional effort. I am thrilled with the outcome of this, so thank you. And yes, +1 to Commissioner McKenna's comments without repeating them. And then I'll just highlight, as we saw in your presentation, implementation, assuming that this all goes according to plan, 2027 for water heaters, 2029 for furnaces. Our climate action plan is trying to get to 0 by 2030, which is only 1 year after the furnace piece, right? So there's still a really big need for cities and specifically Menlo Park to get ahead of this. And I look forward, as part of the building electrification subcommittee, ways to to help get a reach code that will enable that and streamline permitting, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, thanks. Those are good points. I forgot to mention that the uptake right now, actually, as of last year, was about 1.2% of water heater burnouts resulted in heat pump water heater installations. And so one way to view the rule is that that will change to 100% on that day in 2027. And so there needs to be some ramp in order for the installers to be ready to be doing 100%, which is 11,000 water heaters per month in the 9-county Bay Area. Which is the same number they're doing now that are gas water heaters. It's just that they're all the heat pump ones. And so we need to be helping them climb that ramp. And so there's definitely a giant overlap between city activities that we already have envisioned we had to do, and then what can be assisted by this rule. But the two are symbiotic, that the city needs to figure out how does it ramp up the things it can do with outreach information and requirements on burnout, et cetera, to help the market be doing the transition. So that the rest of the transition happens on the January 1st, whatever date it is.
Yeah, I just want to add one other thing. I attended a PG&E webinar today about the 120 volt heat pump water heaters, and there was a study they had done, and the net I believe is that they're very comparable with the 240 volt versions. Some of the lessons learned from the studies they've done is that the manufacturers need to think about developing different form factors for these water heaters so that they can address the issue that Eduardo brought up, fitting these products into smaller spaces or different shaped spaces. So again, I think the BACMed ruling really signals to the market that let's get going. Here's some things you need to start producing. Here's some things you need to start producing more of. So I think it all leads in the right direction.
All right. Thanks. That concludes that item. And now we move to item D1, reports and announcements from staff and commissioners.
Yeah, quick. One heads up and one maybe future request. Sorry, I didn't know if you're gonna mention, but Arbor Day. Everybody, please try to come out. We're doing the thing.
On
If you
Saturday?
wanna elaborate, yeah, you wanna.
Oh, yes,
Or
it's on
County
Saturday.
Park?
No,
Carl E.
Carl E.
Clark.
Carl E. Clark.
Clark Park.
Anyway, yeah, so, yeah, I don't know who's gonna, I don't know who's gonna hear this recording or anybody's still on, but yeah, we definitely hope people come out. There's been a lot of work, with different EPC members and the city staff to put together something kind of fun, so. Yeah, and bright and early, 90 minutes, I think we put on the agenda, so it's not a long time and very family, fun friendly. And then the maybe consideration for the group that we could talk about is, I've been thinking a lot about the reach codes and that being sort of the next big mountain, but then there's some rumblings that I heard in my previous job that I won't be as connected to with the new gig. But I was hoping we could eventually kind of get a better understanding of, which is this issue around the lack of talent to potentially electrify buildings. So there's an issue that's being explored behind the scenes by Senator Becker and Assemblymember Berman about the lack of qualified electricians and HVAC technicians. And I know Mila on Assemblymember Berman's staff was doing a lot of field work to understand that from an education perspective, from a workforce development perspective, with like job train and other folks. But it's sort of, we could pass the reach codes and then we could hit these kind of roadblocks because we just don't have enough qualified professionals to electrify quick enough. So I know there were a lot of sort of sub-regional conversations happening, and it'd be great to maybe invite Mila in to tell us the status of that. What's the role of a city like Menlo Park? Pat in Palo Alto, I think, is a key member of that. So, I think city council in Palo Alto is pretty tuned in, but I'm not 100% sure how much Menlo Park is tuned in, so. I'd love to have that on a future agenda, because I could see that being a roadblock once we pass these reach code things.
Yeah, I welcome inviting them. I am working sort of separate from my role, yes. On EQC, I'm working in partnership with Diane Bailey, Executive Director of Menlo Spark, to develop our own local workforce. And we need this across the state, across the country. But we are in initial stages of potential partnership with JobTrain. We just had a meeting with their Chief Strategy Officer last week to go into details about how we might think about doing that. We are hoping, it's up to council, that perhaps a small bit of the 4.5 million that the state of California has allocated to the city of Menlo Park to electrify our city might be able to go toward the development of that workforce, including paying stipends and a subsidized apprenticeship program for trainees. And so this all takes time, but we're hoping, assuming everything goes the way that I would like it to go, that we can get the first cohort of trainees sometime this year. Our hope is to recruit mostly from the city or our Bellhaven community. I didn't articulate that well. So stay tuned. I will provide updates as they become available.
Is that those two roles specifically, HVAC and electricians, because there's
I think,
union issues with both of those?
yeah, and we're in conversations with union and JobTrain is as well. So we're aware of those pieces. I think that our first cohort, I think we want to focus on HVAC installation. It's more complicated than water heater installation, and there's more of a demand for that in the community. And we'd also be working with local contractors to ensure that these folks have, once they graduate from the program, have solid jobs, careers going forward. So that's the vision, trying to get there.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, however we get the update, it's just one of those issues that
Yeah,
people are starting to talk about. It seems like the solutions are gonna take a little while. It'd be good to understand how we can keep the train kind of go down the tracks.
I agree.
So for me,
On a training related note, just thought I'd announce that the nonprofit sunwork.org, they are having a volunteer training session virtually online. June 10th, I believe it is, a Saturday, typically 9 to noon, and that's a place where people can go online and take a little 3-hour training class, which then qualifies them to join in with Sunwork to do solar installations and to also install heat pump water heaters. So it's a way to, very casual way to pick up training and experience. And that's who I volunteered with to get confidence to do my own do-it-yourself electrification in my house. So the training activity, any other reports from staff or officials?
Yes, I got a couple of items. Okay, so on the permit fee waiver program for building electrification projects. So discounts provided as of April 12th of this month is $14,678. So it's roughly about 48 to 65 permits. I'm working with the permit team and our data folks to try to figure out how do we kind of give a better report out on that, as far as, because it includes EV chargers, and it includes heat pump water heaters, which we've been getting quite a few of, I'd say, over the last couple of months. And so been working also with the permit team on kind of what internal processes can we change to potentially kind of help expedite electrification permits. So working with that, but still understanding that there's kind of two buckets. One is, our internal process of review, and then the other part is any rules that like trigger the internal process of, plan reviews and things like that. So trying to, again, work on streamlining. It's been a goal of the division for this year as well. To move that forward. So it was part of, and this was really good with the fee waiver program because it gave us an opportunity to kind of work with our online permitting system and see kind of what other features it offers as far as asking questions and kind of can we get those questions up front so that people are not having to be resent through the process again. So I'd say, and I did talk to the permit team this week and they've been able to kind of get things out much quicker. So, and instead of, for example, like if some piece of information is missing, normally online, it kind of just gets rejected and kind of sent, back to the applicant, and then it takes time to get back in the queue. And so the permit staff are calling people if they're missing information, like, maybe they just need to add a little bit more details to their site plan, or sometimes they're adding the details kind of for them. But again, hopefully like we're getting into a space where people are, and the contractors are kind of recognizing kind of what's potentially needed. So it's a smoother process than it was, I'd say 3 months ago. So I think that's really good news, and they're all trying very hard. If you will go out there, they have like a picture of what electrification means, like a diagram of like what kind of projects qualify. So that's really good as well. So they've been educating themselves more on it. I did understand, like, I think there's might be a slight issue with the heat pumps. So it sounds like a lot of people are hiring plumbers. And so in order to pull a permit, you need to kind of have that electrician aspect, or the homeowner needs to pull the permit. And so it's kind of creating this issue of the right type of professional, and most homeowners will come back and apply as a homeowner builder kind of person. But again, I think to Commissioner Schmidt's point and Commissioner Evans, maybe the plumbers seem to be wanting these types of jobs and are like actively trying to get that. So maybe there's some potential there to kind of train and figure out like how to connect them with the right folks, like contractors or whoever, so that we're lining up a team of people that can execute the work.
Can I interject something there? So there was a letter out from the state contractor licensing board last year that clarified that plumbers can do the electrical work on.
Okay, well, it'd be great to
Yeah,
see.
so I will forward you that letter.
Yeah,
And they can do it as what they call incidental work, since it's a small part of the plumbing project they're doing. And so there's that kind of trade-off a lot between different things, like landscape contractors can install lighting circuits in your yard, things like that. They just can't rewire your house.
right.
So I'll share that letter with you.
Okay, that'd be great. So everything's going really well there in our permit fee waiver program, and again, trying to work on enhancing the permit process for building electrification. And then we are working on the scope for how to use the $4.5 million that's been allocated from the California Energy Commission. So just getting feedback from stakeholders and trying to figure out kind of, how to move the process along. And so really we need to get city council guidance on how they want to spend the funds. So it's going to be, it's already kind of included in our budget material, but there'll likely be a separate item that kind of goes through all of that in the next couple of months. Let's see. We still have our reach code study session. I've gotten a few questions about that. So I think we're looking at a pretty aggressive or progressive kind of policy where it does include, end of life replacement by a certain year. And so it's taking us a bit of time. Oh my goodness, this fruit's attracting flies. Taking a bit of time to like put all the materials together. So we want to make sure we've got, again, because we're potentially pursuing like a very progressive policy, probably in most of the Bay Area, it's just going to take us some time. We're working with PCE and TRC to kind of get some of the cost analysis. We're evaluating the court ruling from Berkeley's ban on natural gas for new construction, and just making sure we've got that analysis secured, so that, because that question will come up as well. And yeah, I think we're on a good track. So so likely it's kind of been moved around, so end of June is where we're at right now to kind of, again, get all of the pieces that we need to have a good analysis to put forward.
So is that the study session
Yeah.
occurring at the end of June?
Thank you for that, all of that. If that first study session were to be at the end of June. From a process standpoint, are you and your staff able to at least theoretically contemplate implementation by January of 2024? Like, how does
There's
What is-
potential there. I
Yeah.
don't know for every single measure,
Mhm.
but there is definitely, short term.
Yeah, no, I just don't have a
Implementation.
sense of how long the process takes
Yeah.
after the first study.
I think when we
session.
did the new construction reach codes, it was about 9 months.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe less than that.
Mm.
It just really depends on kind of, again, like what dates are we targeting?
Yeah.
What exemptions are we looking at? So those are things we're still kind of working through and making sure that we have an ability to set up a system that can efficiently process things like exemption as well. So yeah, those are good questions, though. Let's see, what else?
Just one last thing about that timing. So if you're able to use Title 24, Part 11, the green code as the mechanism, then you don't have to go through that CEC
Right.
review process we went through the first time with your groundbreaking 2019 reach code. So that kind of lets you pass the thing in December even and have it apply in January.
Yeah. Right, yes. Yeah, and with that kind of understanding, yes, it's, how we'd like to move forward. I don't know, again, we're waiting for our legal team to kind of get back to us about the Berkeley court ruling, like what is the best kind of approach to protect ourselves?
Yep.
And what was I gonna say? It'll come back to me, but now that it's kind of been pushed out to June, it gives an opportunity for the Environmental Quality Commission to review kind of proposed high-level outreach and brainstorm next month about just general education about building electrification and how we would go about kind of engaging folks with potential existing building reach codes. So switching gears, we did apply for the CalApp program. We did get approved for $40,000. And so working through that, kind of those pieces as well.
Thanks for doing that.
Mhm. And what else do I have here? The roles and responsibility updates for the Environmental Quality Commission. They're supposed to be going to the city council in May. And I'm just reviewing with the city clerk right now to ensure that there's consistency across all commissions. And, so keeping true to like the whole intent and the wording, but making, figuring out like where there's like slight changes to it, again, ensure that, it's clear that, it's an advisory body to the city council and that it kind of meets that longevity aspect of other members of the commission joining, 5-10 years down the road. The climate action plan, climate adaptation, resiliency, like all of those elements are in there. So I'll keep you up to date when it comes out through the agenda, but I think maybe May 9th. If not, then the next meeting after that. I think that's all I've got right now. And Ori, you would like to give any updates? Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So just a couple quick climate action plan number 5. So that, again, for folks tuning in, that's the city's climate action plan goal to eliminate fossil fuel use in city operations by 2030. So we hit an exciting milestone with our fleet EV charging plans. So we were able to submit an application to PG&E for their program, and we're reviewing to select the chargers that would qualify us for the greatest number of incentives while also meeting our duty cycle needs. And then we have been working with the Peninsula Clean Energy team and they're providing our technical assistance. So we're working to get our drawings done for the building permit applications for those projects currently, and then it's looking like the two programs are going to kind of weave together quite nicely. So it was intended, but it's fortunate that we're seeing them pan out in the way that we had hoped, that those interacting incentive and assistance programs were designed to. On the water heater front, so again, we had submitted an application to be considered for water heater incentives. And so we were approved, and we have secured funding from Wilden Engineering through a PG&E program. So that's going to be roughly $105,000 to $110,000 worth of heat pump water heaters at no cost to the city. And so that funding is secured, and that team is working to submit their building permit applications. And we've been in coordination with our building division to make sure that they're clear on everything that they need to submit. And we're in budget season. So we've submitted a number of capital improvement program projects for the upcoming budget year. And so working with internal staff and public works, and then across all divisions and departments to make sure that we have the money outlined in the upcoming budgets to enable us to continue the work and the studies related to facilities and fleet electrification. And one of those is the Peninsula Clean Energy Solar and Battery Program for public buildings. So it's looking like we were able to get our applications submitted, our interconnection application submitted before the NEM 2.0 deadline on April 14th. So all of the city facilities that are participating in that program will be generating under NEM 2.0, and so there's a significant increase in the value of the electricity generated on city facilities as a result of that. So that was exciting, and so wanted to say thank you to the Peninsula Clean Energy team who were sprinting to meet that deadline. And I think that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds like good progress.
That's really.
Oh.
Go ahead, yeah, go.
Oh, I also wanted to report that we had a lovely Love Our Earth Day event at Menlo Atherton High School on Saturday. And so I wanted to say thank you to Commissioner McKenna and all of the others who were a part of that planning committee over several weeks. And then a huge shout out to Rachel Launder with Atherton and Katie Riff, who along with others were critical in that multi-city collaboration. So with the city of East Palo Alto, Atherton, Palo Alto, and Menlo Park, along with a number of community organizations. And it was a very well attended event, and the city had a good representation of staff there. So folks from the police department, public works, our community development, and then our water division all had a table. So thank you to them for coming out, and then also to everyone who made that event happen, and of course the community members who joined for that to learn a little bit more about what they can do and kind of share celebration of our Earth.
Yeah, that was quite a fun event. John, do you have anything to report out about it? I heard there were 1,200 attendees.
Yeah, I think that is about right. Yeah, it was a really collaborative event between different cities, like Lori said, and yeah, to his point, Rachel Launder at the city of Atherton and Katie Roof, a Gunn High School student, were just amazing and critical in making the event a success. So big shout out to the two of them and all the other folks that helped plan it. But yeah, I think it was a great event for the community. It brought people together and taught us all how to be greener citizens.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I really enjoyed getting out there and seeing folks and seeing what people are up to. lots of different ways that they were engaging. Any other reports?
I just had a really quick question for Ori. Ori, just from my background knowledge, I know that the city typically goes for state of California and then local funds from business and other entities. Does the city also pursue federal funding for specific things? Or is there some rule against going after like federal grants and federal monies? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I would say no. And I'm not aware of any rules that would restrict us from that. And the Peninsula Clean Energy Solar and Battery Program that I mentioned, they're actually, as part of that, they're looking to leverage some of the IRA or Inflation Reduction Act incentives to make that program as cost effective for participants as possible. And we are all ears. So if there's money that you're aware of, want to make us aware of, there's no, that's always welcome in the inbox. Yeah, we're trying to consider everything that we can to try to keep the costs to the city as limited as possible, but also trying to make sure that we budget the appropriate funds so that in the case that we don't get some of these incentives or rebates that we're targeting, we're still in a position to continue to make progress on these goals.
Perfect, thanks.
Well, just one last comment on the birthday festival. A big thanks to our own Mayor Wilson for being there and speaking and being part of the welcoming panel of local leaders. That was really neat too.
I saw several council members there.
Yes.
And it was really great to see them out and about. Right, and even former EQC commissioners, I remember meeting them the first time I got to this room. So it was fun seeing them again. It was a reunion. All right, well, so that concludes our meeting for April 27th.
Thank you. Right. Good night, everyone online.